Good evening, our merry, merry Marvelites, or good morning for some of you. Welcome to a very special Marvel Movie Talk, where we are going to talk about Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. And very excited that we have assembled an all-star panel of four, starting, of course, with the biggest all-star, me. But also with us, Jeff Willams Jr.
How you guys doing?
And a man whose Hashanas have been washed sufficiently, at least for today. The one and only Eric Conner. On your screen is Yitzhak. Or you say Itzhak?
Yitzhak, if you're nasty. Lashanat Tova.
By the way, spoiler alert, our friend Michael Shirley watched your movie.
No.
Yeah. And he was very impressed by it.
Can we do a talk back on the Bladt cast?
I think we should. And triumphantly returning, giving us a glimpse of her heavenly visage, the one and only Kaitlin Cornell. Thank you for being here.
I'm back.
And right away, Lewis Cox is like, "Oh,
Hi.
Kate. Oh, hi, Kate.
Oh, what's up?
Hi, Mark.
Cami Egan says, "Hey, Marvelites. I was telling everybody before we started, I was the guys and gals over at the Con Guy were kind enough to ask me to speak about Shang-Chi earlier tonight, and Cami Egan was there in the chat as well.
Yay!
So
Thank you,
we are glad to have you with us, and it's okay if you have eyes for another. As long as you keep coming back to us, we are happy to have a polyamorous relationship with you. And Daniel has a lot of Kate.
I have a lot of A's.
Yeah, Kate. That's like the fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot to talk about in terms of the movie itself. And when we talk about it, spoiler, we're going to talk about everything. We don't do the spoiler-free episodes. I think they're a waste of time. So we're going to do all the spoiler-heavy stuff. But I did want to talk about it just in terms of how the only way that we measure success in this day and age, ka-ching, money. And Shang-Chi for the 3-day weekend came in. I've heard a couple different numbers, either somewhere around $72 million for the 3-day weekend. Nice. For Labor Day, 90 if you factor in today being the 4th day for the 4-day weekend. So some of that that earlier number includes a Thursday, the preview screenings, but the previous record holder for Labor Day weekend was Halloween from 2007. That's the Rob Zombie one. So if you love the Halloween movies, you probably know that one. And that made about $30 million. And that's 2007. So long before the pandemic, it set a record that Shang-Chi more than doubled. And it's pretty impressive. And it measures up in terms of overall openings. It's a little bit ahead of, I think, Ant-Man and the Wasp and a couple of others. So it's, and to do that kind of business in the pandemic, I think is really impressive. And we will talk about this on Wednesday for sure, but there is some news, Marvel adjacent news, because, on the heels of Shang-Chi making so much money, if we all remember Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or There Will Be Carnage. What the hell's the name of the movie? I always forget. Yeah, Let There Be Carnage.
Venom,
it was supposed to come out.
What carnage?
I could tell you about the carnage.
You think you know carnage?
Venom. Carnage is my middle name. That was originally scheduled for Friday the 23rd of September. Then they moved it to October 15th, and everybody thought they were going to move it to next year because there was that flurry of movies that all moved to next year, like Top Gun. And then all of a sudden they're like, just kidding. We're moving it back a little bit to October 1st. So Venom will be with you and all of us on October 1st, which is exciting. But I think that the success of Shang-Chi owes a lot to the fact that, one, it's great. Two, the kind of representation that Asians have not seen much of. You haven't had an Asian superhero, certainly not in the MCU. And usually I will try and bring one of you fine folks with me when I go to my very infamous press screenings. But I brought my wife to this one because, as some of you may or may not know, my wife is Chinese American, and she was very excited for this. And there were a lot of feelings she had seeing this movie. And the most prevailing ones were that she was actually a little sad and a little angry that she didn't have this when she was a kid, that there wasn't, you couldn't look at like an all Asian cast like this. And there wasn't the Asian superhero. So we can be excited for our kids. My son Felix, who's 6, my daughter Lucy, who's 3. So, there's a lot of that. And I don't know, I feel like, first and foremost, this made a boatload of money because it's really good, but also there is that built-in excitement. I want to ask what everybody thinks overall. Jeff, let me ask you first. Your thoughts on the movie and why you think it's connecting so well with audiences.
I think it's connecting. Well, my thoughts on the movie first. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I think that the overarching movie was funny. I thought it had good action in the beginning. And it was a great Marvel movie that tied in with everything. And I think that's also why people came to see it. And that's also why they're excited. They were excited for the new characters, for how this new character can be in the MCU and where he's been all this time. But there's also this cultural aspect and wanting to see the first Asian lead superhero join the MCU and join the Avengers. So it was cool on that aspect. But we'll probably dive in deeper later. But my biggest frustration was with the final battle. It was kind of, for me, hard to really watch and hard to understand when there's dragons fighting each other and one in the water and one's made of water. So it kind of took me away from the whole totality of the film for me.
Yeah, no, the final action sequence, I think, to me, I saw that as, here's this guy, but he's going to be, on the same playing field as a literal god and, some truly powered characters. So we have to really raise the stakes. And I do think it lost sort of a little bit of what made the first 2 acts great. I didn't have a problem with it, but as I mentioned earlier, I was on with the Con guys and Jim Fry on that show. That was really his problem. He felt like that sequence of the movie really kind of dragged the whole thing down for him. It pushed it to from a 9 to a 7.5 for him, just when we were doing our rankings of it. And look, I understand why they did what they did, but Jeff, it's I think that it's a great point, because I feel like the film would work if it was, a little bit more of an earth-based, or, you're dealing with these magical rings, that's fine. But boy, I really felt like it bled over into another Disney property, which also had Awkwafina in it, Raya, the Last Dragon. But Kate, I would like to hear your thoughts overall on Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. First of all, I know I don't look like it, but I'm a huge fan of old martial arts movies. I love them. And so for me, this was a homage to all of those martial arts films. To halfway through the second act, I kind of looked at my friend. I'm just like, I'm not watching a Marvel movie anymore. I'm watching a martial arts film. The closest that and even with moves with him fighting on the bus, and he does that move with the jacket, is a very Jackie Chan thing to do. And everything is using what is around him in order to fight, and pulling in. That's his father was he uses a very strong style of fighting, a closed fist style of fighting, versus his mother, which is an open palm Tai Chi inspired style of fighting. And so you see very distinctly these two sides. And to have Shang-Chi use more of a drunken master type of style, which kind of blends the two together, and then fully fledge that out as the movie goes on, as being trained by his father and getting looser and looser and looser, and accepting all of that is is really cool, and it's a really great way to visually tell a story, and it's something that's in a lot of martial arts stories. And I like that they pulled all of those influences in, and especially when you have Michelle Yeoh, who is amazing. So you have some of these great people who are like, holding up the flag of great martial arts movies. The last act is where they kind of tried to make it a Marvel movie, and I don't think it worked very well. I think it got too CG, so you couldn't really follow the story. And the main part of the story was the heart of the story was the fight between him accepting his father or him forgiving his father. And that whole thing. And the second that the father died and the soul was taken out and he gives him the rings, the movie was kind of over for me, because I was like, okay, we're going to fight a dragon and then we're going to make some jokes. I do think it was cool that the kaiju almost got the soul out of the dragon, but because it wasn't like we have to keep them apart as much as possible. And then once you get the dragon in the fight with the kaiju, it's like, well, we just have to help the dragon at this point. Like, we can't really go up against this thing. So it got a little bit like convoluted, and it's the like, I'm not going to leave you, but the dragon soul thing, like, I understood all of the polls. And honestly, for me, Awkwafina saved that movie.
I mean, I think she's great. It was definitely one of those things where I wondered, how she would fit in. And look, I think that they made the conscious decision. There's the point where it's like, all right, well, I'm going. No, you can't come. Oh, no, I'm definitely going. And then that set the tone for the rest of the movie, which is that she goes everywhere. And there are several times where other movies would have definitely left her behind. And it would have been in a way where it's like, well, yeah, she's going to get killed, so she shouldn't go, Right. But I love that they found a way, and that they had her figure out how to shoot a bow and arrow, where all of a sudden she wasn't like a master, But
I loved, but even like, I have a book on my shelf right now, which if you haven't read it, I would recommend it. It's called Zen and the Art of Archery. And that kind of was her theme throughout the whole movie and it kind of spoke to a lot of, I'm sure it speaks more to the Asian American culture of like not knowing quite where to go. But also it speaks to our culture and a younger kind of culture of like not really having a direction, and like her having to, and the fact that she got a story of like, I think the woman told her like, if you don't fire the arrow, you're not firing anything, or something like that. She says this beautiful line of like, if you don't shoot the arrow straight, then you're not moving. You're not shooting at anything. It's basically, yeah.
Just some comments on the friendship. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead,
finish. Okay. Kemi Egan, the friendship between Shang and Katie was great because we all have a friend like that we can relate to, and Dominicus Saxon agrees. The chemistry between them as friends who bust each other's balls was very well done. All the way down to his fake name of Sean. I thought that that was actually a very funny moment. Which it reminds me of one of my favorite. It reminds me of one of my favorite baseball stories, which I share whenever I can. Most of us have at least heard of the great Rickey Henderson, and when you're a public figure of some kind, you go ahead and have some kind of fake name you use when you stay at a hotel on the road. Rickey Henderson's fake name was Rick Henderson because nobody knows Rick, everybody only knows Ricky. And so that Sean Chi made me think of it. I wanted to let you finish your thought before we turn it over to Itzhak.
I think also like of all of the side characters in Marvel, I think she reminded me of the most like I would be in a situation like I would want to go on an adventure, and that's who I would be on an adventure. An assassin would come up to me, I would stick my hands in the air and belt out the lyrics to Hotel California because I wouldn't know what to do.
And you would almost fall off a building.
And I would almost fall off. Like, there's no way.
The difference is, by the way, that
I'm not going out this way.
I would definitely fall off the building. There would have been no saving me.
The end of my thought, and if I can, I wanted to ask Eric, because he's also a screenwriter. Like, what I liked about all the characters is they all had something to do. They all had an arc they had to go through. Like Shang-Chi, the sister, Katie, the father. Like, everyone had their like, not only their, and even like Trevor Slattery, which is really weird, like they had their role to play in the story, but they also had these kind of very clear defined places to go internally. It wasn't just Shang-Chi's story. So I wanted to know if like you caught that, or you had anything more to say as also a teacher of writing and somebody else who looks at this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, one of the things I thought was so great about this was its ensemble and how developed so many characters were in this movie. I mean, you're right. Like in other Marvel properties, Aquafina would have been gone. You know, they wouldn't have killed her, but she just would have, you know, look, Kat Dennings in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like she just would have disappeared. And they kept her. I'm not exactly sure why Wong needed her at the end, but if it gives me more Aquafina, that's great for all our diets. We all
Right.
need more Aquafina. We all need more water. So it's cool. And I agree. I think it was the characters were active, you know, and they also it's interesting because I watched this twice. I saw it Thursday night late, and then I went with my family today, just like my ancestors would have during the first Rosh Hashanah many years ago.
Right.
And you know, and I found, you know, for one, my wife, this might have been her favorite Marvel movie in years, because she found like the female characters. She kept just saying like they were so interesting, and they were, you know, they drove the story as much as he did. And when I watched it the second time, I realized he got kind of quiet for a while.
Right.
You know, like in essence, the second half of this movie, there's a real big shift. And I'm just going to echo what all you guys are saying. In some ways, I wish they never opened that portal, because once they did, you're right. It's like literally the genie came out of the bottle, and it didn't need to. Like that actual fight scene before that was interesting. And I remember at one point looking at it, and it was like, it wasn't thousands of people fighting. It was a few dozen, but we knew the stakes were really high, and it was easy to follow the action choreography. And this is great. Kate, it's funny you bring up Drunken Master, because that is what I said as soon as we walked out of the theater. I looked at my sons, and in my best, you know, rabbinical voice, "Now, my sons, you are ready. You are ready for Drunken Master 2. Not 1, 2. Because Drunken Master 2 is one of my favorite movies ever. I saw that in the theater.
Legit. It's so good.
It is the greatest. And it's also a good, like, it's like a good gateway drug for Kung Fu. Just like this is a good gateway drug for martial arts. And the action choreography in this, my God, I was so excited to watch that bus scene and the scene on the scaffolding again. And when I watched it a second time, I was even more impressed. And I'll say this, Act 3, the big fight at the end, you guys all hitting it, right? It became a very sort of usual Marvel film or usual Disney property. And it didn't need to. It didn't need to go that big. I love the visuals. When I watched it a second time, I could follow it more, definitely, like any of us could. But I agree. What was so great about this, I mean, the villain, it's one of the most interesting villains they've had. And Tony Leung, I apologize to all my friends in China who I cannot pronounce the last name correctly, but he's just a wonderful actor. I mean, In the Mood for Love. I mean, he's been around for years. What a great casting and character he was as a villain. But I'll hand the conch back to you, Christian.
No, that's fine. It's a communal conch. You know, everyone gets their own talking stick, so it's fine. But I think that he's great because he is that sort of villain where you're like, he believes that he's right, and here's why he believes he's right. Yeah. And you know, it's the example that I always use is, as crazy as Thanos was, he really thought that he was making the universe better by getting rid of half of it. And you know, that's the evil part of evil genius, I suppose. And you know, those are part. Yeah, the mad Titan. And I think your best villains are going to be the ones that it isn't just like, you know, like when we first meet Loki and he just wants to rule things, you're like, okay, you know, the layers we get to that character, the fact that we've had so much time to spend with him, I think it helps so much. And you know, I mean, I think you usually have like, well, the bad guy wants to rule the world or rule the galaxy if it's on bigger stakes. You know, I don't really know what they want, you know, and go ahead.
I feel like just to pick, like, I know we're talking about Shang-Chi, but the Loki thing, the first time we see Loki is not the Avengers, but the one that I wanted to see was the one that was established in Thor, which was the I could have done it father, that guy, where it was like he was doing it just to impress his dad. And then that's all like, I think that Avengers movie even though he was great in it, and it was establishing it. It was more about establishing a team instead of establishing a villain. And this one, they were trying to do both because for Shang-Chi, the villain of it, like making his father the villain of his story was so pivotal. But you also had to like understand the loss of that. And I think people who do have hard relationships with their parents, but they still love them, I think that rings.
Yeah, well,
to a
I
lot
think
of people.
yeah, I think that's why people connect with it so much, because of the importance of family. I mean, yes, his mother has passed on, Shang-Chi's mother, but we have this mother figure in Michelle Yeoh who's always fantastic. So it's so great that she's able to be in this movie, and in the aunt role. I think that's great that we have her. And just his sister is the fact that she taught herself all of the training because they wouldn't train her just by watching it, and it's an example I used earlier tonight. It's the one I always use. They always talk about, Fred Astaire was a great dancer, but Ginger Rogers had to do it backwards and in heels.
Backwards and in heels. You got to say it like
heels.
Richards, right?
Heels.
Yeah. So
there's something happening in the chat that I want to address, and please, Jeff, step in if you need to. But something that's happening in the chat is that because of that post-credit scene, it seems like she's the villain. And I actually don't think that's true.
I don't think she's a villain. His sister, Shang-Chi's sister, and I actually forget the character. Somebody remind us who what Shang-Chi's.
It's I can spell it, but I can't say it.
Yeah,
even though I've heard it for 3 hours.
I know they did say it. No, I think it's honestly, it's kind of like. It's sort of that moment. It's like for anybody who saw the yes, I'm going to use this show to spoil the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian. But if you see the credits scene at the end of The Mandalorian season 2, when Boba Fett takes over Jabba's palace, which, let's be honest, it was Bib Fortuna's palace at that point. Not that hard to do that takeover, and it's also like the what ended up being the final season of Luke Cage, when he was going to run the club. I forget what it's called now. Harlem's.
Club.
Yeah, there's that club that's up there, and
that club that's up there.
Yeah, it's called Harlem something,
sorry,
but I hate myself that I can't remember it.
Sorry.
I just really can't remember.
I think it's the Viper Room.
Do you?
No.
Harlem's Paradise.
Jeff, help
Is that
us.
the name of it?
Save us, Jeff. Come on.
It sounds like Paradise sounds right, but it's not Harlem's Paradise.
Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
Yes. Let me sleep on it.
Exactly.
And then I'll be able to come up with it. I'm sorry. I brought up something. Yeah, no,
Harlem's
it's
Paradise.
Yeah, it is. According to the internet, it's Harlem's Paradise. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's that kind of moment where someone, ascends to, a role as like a head of basically an organized crime family. And, I mean, look, she's going to run it her way. And since this is I don't want to talk about the other post-credit scene for a little bit yet, but we're talking about this one. I had this idea that, everybody was training and they were all women. And then I had the idea of like, well, at what point is she going to team up with all those Black Widows that got set loose into the wild? Because at this point they've been on their own for 5 to 10 years. I don't know how many years it is since the Black Widow movie in the timeline, because it was Civil War and then we're already 5 years past the snap. So anyway, the point is, it's like, I think that's a cool opportunity right there, that the 10 Rings begins working with the former widows.
What
were you going to say, Jeff?
That could be a good opportunity, but there's another person that I feel like there has to be some connection, because she also runs a fighting league in Madripoor, and I'm talking about Carter, right?
The power broker,
Sharon.
Sharon Carter. So I think there has to be some type of connection there, some type of communication, because they're both running fight leagues, and it's too similar, too close together. And yeah, so that's what I'm guessing. And I mean, I would love to see that type of interaction in some sort.
Yeah, no, I think that that is something that we will see, you know, and getting some of the getting some of the widows involved, but this idea that she's going to end up probably butting heads with Sharon Carter, that's going to bring her into the MCU. I feel like that scene is setting up the next Shang-Chi movie. Whereas the other scene is setting up, you know, how he's going to interact in future Marvel movies. I think we'll probably be seeing a lot of him in the near future. But we'll kind of backtrack to that.
Different than that.
What's that?
I think because it's not the end of this. The movie was not Shang-Chi would return. It's the 10 Rings will return. Right. I think the mid-credit scene was establishing he's going to go the Avengers track, and 10 Rings is going to be a completely different thing that follows that's going to tie in with Captain America 4.
Right.
But it's going to be the sister. That's going to be her offshoot, and maybe they'll connect with Shang-Chi later on. But Shang-Chi's definitely going on the Wong track, not the wrong track, the Wong track. And then because it's the 10 ring. I don't know. Saying the 10 rings will return as.
Do you think the 10 Rings is going to return in 10 episodes on Disney Plus?
Maybe. One for each ring, explaining what
I could see Valentina. I could see Valentina also hooking up with them. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, is it so far down the road? By the way, we're talking team ups. I tell you, at one point I got really weirdly wistful and sad about, man, I would have loved to see a Shang-Chi Black Panther crossover here, which they could still do.
Yeah, but
not the new Black Panther.
Yeah.
Specifically, Black Panther, T'Challa, and him would have been such a great team. And really, too, because it's also like they're two sides of the same coin in terms of relationship with father. One's living up to the legacy of this great man. One's trying to escape the legacy of a horrible man. And I just thought, as I was watching this and the world building, it really felt like a cousin to what they did so well in Black Panther. So, yeah, I always loved. I mean, I know Christian's opinion on these things from his very well worded, very long letters he wrote as a child. But Marvel team ups to me, I mean, that's always loved those as a kid. Loved seeing, how much leaning into Strange with the new Spider-Man. But I think that team up would have been great. So, I mean, I'll take him with that.
No, it would have been the Flintstones meet the Jetsons of the MCU for sure. I don't disagree for a second. No,
Munch in every show ever made.
That's true.
Yes.
I've always loved team ups, and I think it's the idea of getting to see any of these characters working together. Ivan Soto's echoing a point. They said the 10 Rings will return, not Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi will get another movie, though. That's what I'm saying. And I think that's when we're going to really deal with his sister. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't necessarily see her at all before that, but I think that that's really sort of setting up that kind of a thing. It's sometimes your post-credit scenes factor into what's coming next in the series of movies, and then sometimes it's Adam Warlock, which we're still waiting to actually see. Which we got at the. I mean, it was at the.
It takes time.
It was at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is still a little ways away. But in any case, I think that there are such strong characters, and I think it's great that there are so many strong female characters, because you're getting this Asian representation all throughout the film, but it's not just a bunch of Asian bros. It's there are legitimately great. It isn't just there's a couple of it's just Awkwafina being his friend, just Katie.
Right.
There are so many. His sister, and as we mentioned, even though it's in flashback, I mean, his mother, clearly a badass. That's cool to see. Her take down his dad, and I think I don't know. Eric, everybody's falling in love story is pretty much like that, right? I mean, everybody fights in some mystical land for protection when they first fall in love. I mean, that's my story with my wife. I'm sure yours with your wife as well. So
yeah, it was at Grand Central in New York City. I mean, it was a knockdown, bloody battle, and then we couldn't defeat each other. So, what do you do when you can't defeat your foe? You marry them. And
yeah, you were just defending the honor of Metro North against the evil New Jersey Transit. So obviously that's really what you were doing there. But yeah, I think that look, strong characters can they go so far because it goes from having a good movie to a great movie. I see what the point is that Jeff, and I think everybody's a lot of people are agreeing in the chat that they felt like we kind of lost something during that that one section. Right. But somewhere in here Ghost actually really liked it, and there it is. Ghost 8386. I loved the third act of Shang-Chi. It reminded me of Avatar: The Last Airbender meets Dragon Ball Z, and I think it is a very sort of it's a lot. It's definitely a mixture of genres in there, and I think Go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say my only rebuke to that is when has either one of them had a good live action movie? The answer is neither, and it hasn't. So, I mean, those can remind you of it, but that's not a good thing. Sorry, person, continue.
No, it's fine. But Daniel was saying that he was worried that Awkwafina being, might be too much for the movie, like The Rock being in a movie, being a distraction or being too big for the movie, but she wasn't that. I think that it was a character that well suited her. She's able to still be her, but we really care about her, and we can see how much Shang-Chi cares about her. Right. And then the fact that she gets, her own element of badassery in that third act, I think is great. Sort of the evolution of that character.
I think Awkwafina does something really, really well in her performance, which is completely authentic to her. Why is this weird? I don't know. I'm gonna ignore it. I think Awkwafina, in her authenticity of herself, she's able to do something, especially for female acting, and I think it can also translate into more guys, that they put on that tough persona, and you believe that she believes it, but you can see underneath it that she's very vulnerable and trying to hide something. So she's doing two things in her performance at the same time, and she's doing it really, really well. So we can see her being like, yeah, I don't need to, I could be a valet driver my whole life. And underneath that line, you can see her going, no. So it's really great about what Awkwafina gives to the movie and what she gives to younger actors is the ability to say one thing and she's saying another thing. And so when she finally does release that of oh yeah, I really do want to have a direction, and someone actually tells her no, you want to have a direction in your life, you're not fooling anybody, then she cracks because the vulnerability was there the entire time. It wasn't a stretch for her to finally release that top layer. So right. I think for younger actresses and younger people watching this who are no, I got this. I can pay my rent and I can work 2 jobs. I got this. And it's no, you don't got this. And being more open about that, I think is and watching someone who's willing to be open about it with a tough person persona on top of it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can do that.
No, and I think it's great from a practical standpoint that they set up her as somebody who's going to be. It's very important to have her driving later in the movie, and I'm glad we got to see it instead of hey, didn't you tell me once you're a good driver? Oh yeah, let me drive. And there's actually. Daniel Drew wants to share something. He's talking about how those creatures weren't dragons, after he saw it. Daniel slid into my DMs, and we talked a lot about the movie because most people hadn't seen it yet, so it was hard to be able to talk about. But in terms of the fantastical nature, I love where he's going with this. So what he messaged me was that maybe Michelle Yeoh mentions some of the other cities, and maybe one of those would be Kunlun, which does tie into Iron Fist. And the Matt Fraction's listed in the credits for this movie, so a sequel could actually reintroduce Iron Fist, and they would actually give him some time to learn how to fight for on screen. But I think he also said even so if it wasn't Kunlun, it could definitely be something like that. And I think if they're building something specific like that, it does fit into the mythology. And look, these are all characters that Marvel can do whatever they want with again. And if you don't think that they're not focused on giving you an Iron Fist that is more awesome than the Netflix version, then you're not really giving Marvel enough credit for things they do. In terms of trying to get a do-over in here, I have been very outspoken on the record for how I felt about the usage of the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And I think that that was definitely a nice reveal that he's in this movie. But as I mentioned sort of vaguely right after I saw it and in the weeks since, Ben Kingsley was at the premiere. And once Ben Kingsley was at the premiere, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's in this. I just didn't think he was going to be in it this much. And the reveal for where he was and how he goes with them, like all that was a huge surprise. And it's definitely they made amends for Iron Man 3, at least to me, because I feel like they did a disservice to a character that is actually pretty cool in the comics, even making fun of the fact that his name is the Mandarin in there. Let me start with you, Eric. What did you think about getting to see Trevor again?
Well, that's definitely one of those turning into the skids, and it's like, and I'll tell you, that was bold. It's like, hey, F you, we like this ridiculous character. We're going to give you more of him. You don't like it, kiss my ass. That was the attitude it felt like. And he is so fun in this role that it's one of those, if I just read the screenplay, I'd have one opinion, I think. Watching Ben Kingsley, though, like, you don't necessarily think of that guy as a comedic genius. Like, I mean, Gandhi told a lot of really great jokes. I don't know if you remember in the film. A lot of one-liners.
Yeah, he was the Aquafina.
He was funny.
Right. Gandhi Fina, I think was the name. But in the end of it all, I thought, all right, they took something, they did a bit of a do-over, yet at the same time, they're saying, no, we know what we did. But I thought it was smart how they kind of worked him in. And it's almost like if you didn't have Aquafina, you couldn't have him. So Aquafina was like that gateway drug to have a little bit of like goofiness in that character in the middle of this otherwise not so goofy world. I was so happy to see him. I was shocked because I again, with that twist and, not ruining, but wasting a character in Iron Man 3, I think they brought back the character so well in this, and even with the name thing and saying it's a chicken dish, I think they, what do they call in golf, a mulligan? I feel like it was a mulligan that felt earned, at least to me. Y'all welcome to do screen. And, again, it's Rosh Hashanah. It's a new year.
MacGuffin.
So, sei gesund, go and be well.
Dominicus Saxon has a quote from Trevor. I'm just playing dead. It's called acting. Cami Egan likes that too. I thought that it was great the way that they were able to use him, and yes, how funny he was. And let's not shortchange his comedic partner in. Of course, I'm talking about Morris, the delightful faceless creature that when he gets reunited with the other of his kind, I don't know, it's the kind of thing that you're not expecting in a movie. When you sit down, it's like, this is a kung fu movie, but it's in the MCU. You're like, oh yeah, and then there's like a. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just saying the best line I thought actually was, "You can see him too. I'm not crazy." I'm sorry, the Planet of the Apes stuff was
fucking funny. Yeah. I was dying at the Planet of the Apes with this, like, I cannot believe that they taught the apes to ride horses and just like completely.
Yeah. But I loved it.
Just the way that he delivers that. And look, I think that
I
know,
love the MCU for making people who are normally like super serious do things that are ridiculous. And not just ridiculous in terms of like you're going to fight a CG monster ridiculous, but like we're going to have Richard E. Grant wear tights ridiculous.
Yeah,
or
that's
like
true.
we're going to have you say like be an actor that's slattery and like say this stuff about like believing the apes were trains. Like we're like
Yeah.
we're going to take you for what you're known for doing and make you do not that at all.
Yeah,
Have
no,
fun.
exactly, and I think that works. What did you think about the fake Mandarin of it all, Jeff? Getting Sir Ben Kingsley in here.
Yeah, I was interested to see how they're gonna play it because I saw him at the premiere. I wasn't really a huge fan of that because I'm starting to less and less like all these spoilers that we're getting for all the TV and film projects.
Yeah,
because I'm more wrapped in it. But it is what it is. He was there. With that being said, I was surprised by how well I liked his acting and his role in this movie, and I really loved how they just like kind of called themselves out in a sense and made it work in the times, kind of made it more culturally relevant in a sense, but like still just made it work in the movie and didn't put too much emphasis on it and move past it. But like he made sense. He added comedic like timing to the film, and it was cool. So like I didn't think he distracted at all, and I really enjoyed him.
yeah.
Also,
no,
they changed the flag. The 10 Rings flag, they changed it from the first movie from Iron Man 3.
And we've also seen I believe the 10 Rings flag. Yes, you saw in I think multiple Iron Man movies actually,
Yeah.
and then this was pointed out on the show I was on earlier, and I'm not taking credit for it, but the criminals in I think it's Ant-Man and the Wasp, the guy has the 10 Rings tattoo on his neck, and I definitely didn't remember that. And that's why I love running in nerd circles, because even when I think I'm a huge nerd, and I'm right, somebody's even bigger, and I always appreciate that, because it just adds to it.
But
and
they're not Christian, but they're not more powerful.
No,
not on this show.
Can we also talk about the Zach Cherry cameo that happened?
What happened?
So do you remember the guy from Homecoming who was like, "Yo, what up? Like, can you do like stunts for me?" to Spider-Man?
Oh,
he was the guy on the bus that was going like, "Yo, I'm on a bus."
I'm sorry, I didn't remember that. That's so funny. That guy was great. Yeah, I just thought he was funny in this, and I didn't even make the connection.
I didn't either until after the movie. And a friend of mine was like, "No, it's this dude." I'm like, "What?" I can't take full credit either, but that was super fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I think that there's so much about this that I think works, and I think one of the things that I found, I was saying this earlier, one of the things that I found I really liked is that this is a movie where our hero is already a hero before he actually does anything about it. So he already knows everything. He knows he can do all of it. It's not like, oh, I'm surprised that I know Kung Fu. It's like, oh, wow, look at what it's not, you get that in a lot of movies that like, oh, I have these powers. Let me figure out how to use them. No, he knows how to use them. He just hadn't been. And I thought it was great because you're really able to hit the ground running. That bus sequence is so good because he's able to be so awesome in it. He's not like, well, I don't know what happens if I do this. And I think that it was kind of and we've gotten some of that before. Like obviously when we meet Thor, he's already a god. And, there are plenty of examples, but a lot of times we're watching a kid get bit by a radioactive spider and then he has to figure out what he can do with it, And I thought that was great. And then of course, bringing him up to speed for, how he's going to be able to participate in the MCU in the future, you add the rings to it. But I feel like Shang-Chi was a very strong character from the beginning because he has all this knowledge and all these abilities. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was just honestly, I just wanted to give a shout out to my guy Ghost and Hayward. They're just two of my favorite people in the chat, and I kind of, to be 100% honest with you, I missed the question because I was trying to make a good pun in my response. So I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, you're in good company because Ghost never liked Zia and
I was
really
reading the
dislikes
chats.
her. Yeah, that's all right.
I was reading the chats and enjoying myself.
Yeah, well, you look when you can make friends and influence people. Obviously, that's what we're here to do. I wanted to talk to you about the character of Shang-Chi. The fact that he already knows how to do all of his cool stuff. Like we don't have to wait for him to figure. We don't need the sequence where he figures it out. He's just like we get that bus sequence, which is one of the best set pieces in a movie I've seen in a long time. I'm sure I could think of something that I like just as much, but nothing comes to mind right now. And it's so great, and it's so well done. And what do you think, sort of, the character actually that we get of Shang-Chi, from basically from the first time that he has to start fighting, it really just changes who he is. But he clearly knows who he is, and I think that's important in these movies.
Yeah, it was. I like the way they showed us that as an audience. The way they showed us in the format, we didn't have to like go through too much of his childhood at the start of the movie. We just saw it in kind of quick glimpses, and then he surprises everybody in the sense of all the people that's around him, mainly Katie. But it made us really like grow with the character. I liked Shang-Chi a lot, and I felt like it was cool because like he was fighting who he was destined to be and who everybody wanted him to be, and he just wanted a normal life. So it gave him a lot more relatability to a more general audience.
You started to talk, Kate. I wasn't going to get in your way.
I don't know if that was it.
What?
Because I agree with you, but when he reveals to Katie that he actually did kill that gangster, and that's what he's running from. I feel like it's like he was running from turning into his dad, and the closer he gets to his dad, like the more he. So it's like I'm like adding. And so I think him having that, what was cool about the sequence is like he adds to his martial arts knowledge by learning from his aunt about his mother and trying to be more like his mother. But it's like in learning more about how to be your mom, you cannot deny that you are also your dad. And I wish they said it in that way because that was more of the theme of you can't deny that you are part of your dad is part of you in this quest to become more like your mom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that the character building, the importance of family, all of that straight through, and I think that really lends itself to why people have responded so well to it. And I don't know. I mean, it's I'm glad we had some people in the chat who loved the last sequence. I think it's interesting when people see things differently. And I didn't think it was bad in any way. I just think they didn't need to go there, but clearly they felt they did. That's the choice that they made. And
why do you think they felt they need to go there, Christian?
Well, I think that they are building a much bigger mythology, and like I was saying, Daniel's thought that it could tie into Kunlun, or even if it's not that, but other mysterious lands. I think it's very likely going to tie into that because of in terms of dragons and all of that stuff being a huge part of Iron Fist's backstory. So I think that at some point we are going to get there, and I think that they felt like that this makes sense. Like this is a time to bring that in. So let's just go ahead and do that. And
question for the group. Sorry, Jeff, go.
I mean, more just a statement, like, because weren't they gonna do like this wasn't Fing Fang Foom, but like I wasn't a huge fan of these dragons, so like I'm just not excited for bringing more dragons. That's not like him fighting dragons. Like I'm just not excited for that. So
So you're
just
anti-dragon?
We
Chat,
all
what do
know
you
right
think
now,
about
right now,
Chat?
that's what I'm getting.
Chat, what do
That's
you
like
think
an
about
old
Jeff?
kind of
Jeff
an
hates dragons.
I mean, as long as they're not water dragons, like I just didn't understand what was going on. Like, was he real? Could you just jump through him? Could you swim through it? Sorry, Kate. I just went on a tangent.
No.
Do you want?
No,
Do you want
dude,
peach
I've
dragon?
been going on
What kind of
tangents
dragons
this whole
do you like?
podcast.
Puff the
I just want
Magic
real
Dragon,
dragons,
or
like,
no dragon
you
at
know.
all.
Puff
And
the
then, like,
Magic
if we're-
Dragon.
Yeah.
If
I
we're
agree.
flying
Yeah.
dragons, like, I mean, that's the real dragon. That's the only dragon that matters.
Hell yeah.
But no,
My
I'm
group-
just hesitant to be all in on dragons when we go on like Iron Fist and
Go all the
more.
way on
Sorry.
track.
By the way, Jeff, this is like the second or third time that some variation of this was said in the chat. Jeff likes the Flash. Don't take his opinion seriously.
We're getting
Look,
changed now
you know
by
what's
our
devastating?
Oh,
You know
that's
what's
a
devastating?
brutal.
I
Yeah.
I hosted the Flash for 1 season out of 8, and they're like, "Oh, he's a Flash guy.
He's a flasher.
DC only. He only
Yeah.
knows DC." Can you? What is that? Wait, what is this right here? And then what is like that? I'm pretty sure neither one of those.
Yeah,
Pretty sure
I,
neither one of those. Okay,
I don't see Barry Allen anywhere in there. Yeah.
exactly. Until you like point to my.
Kate, what
either
was
way,
your question
I like
for
I like Marvel
for the
and DC.
floor?
My question for the group was, and I think Daniel mentioned something of it right what I was going to ask. Yeah, of course you did, Daniel. Was, do we think that if even hopefully for Jeff's sake there will be no dragons, and hopefully for Michael Shirley's sake there will be no Sharon Carter, but like
And
do
no
we think-
Mephisto, by the way.
and no
Welcome to my
Mephisto.
next Photoshop, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah,
Yes.
which I do have the things you.
Oh
wanted
no,
to share.
trust me. How to Train Your Dragon, Jeff. Get ready.
Do we think that this is an Eternals tie-in with the Deviants?
Well,
and
that's
the,
where
and
I was
like,
going. Yes, that's
I
exactly
helped
what
you.
I wanted to talk
Look at
about.
me helping you, Christian.
So when we get to
You earn your square.
the mid-credit scene where we have the legitimate surprise of the movie, getting both Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, and Cammie Egan brought this up in the previous chat on the other show, but she's right. He's Bruce. He's not Smart Hulk. He does have his arm in the sling, which is going to be the case for the rest of his life, is what we understand. Doing that snap is not, I mean, we saw what it did to Tony. And we don't know why he's Bruce, but I'm sure they'll explain how he's gotten to a place where he doesn't have to just be Smart Hulk all the time. But I did think it was interesting. So I love the way that we get Wong running in there. It's like the end of Back to the Future. It's your kids. We need you. And that's why he needed to get Awkwafina too. It's like, Marty. So,
and then he's going to knock Awkwafina out at the beginning of the next movie and leave her in an alley.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they were like, wait, why did he have to get both of them? I don't know. We're going to recast her and everything. But in any case, so we get to see Wong and love the karaoke scene with Wong. I don't want to go too far, but let's just say one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It can't be my favorite scene in the movie, but it's pretty close. The karaoke scene with them. It's way up there. But then analyzing the rings and how old they are, and the fact that it's not Chitauri, and Carol's like, yeah, I ain't never seen none of that. That's not what she said. But this idea that it is old.
I would pay her to say it like that.
Yeah,
though.
I would too. The fact
never
that it's
seen
really
nothing like that before.
the fact that I reckon I ain't never seen it. That don't look like no Chitauri. So I think that the idea that it's older than anything that anybody can figure out what it is, and the fact that Shang-Chi using them for the first time, him using them, not when his dad used them, when he used them, it sent out some kind of a signal. I believe that this is a direct tie-in to Eternals. And this is deviant technology. And then the whole reason we've never seen the Eternals, even though they've been here and there's plenty of times they could have helped out, is that their only purpose is to protect from the deviants. So I feel like that's exactly what this is. And that made me even more excited about the scene, is I'm like, oh, they're figuring out a way to, like, I never thought Shang-Chi and Eternals were going to connect in any way other than the fact that they're going to be in the same universe, and then at some point, they'll be in the same movie. So I thought that the scene was it was a nice surprise, very funny too. The whole thing that Bruce doesn't have Carol's number, but she's just like, yeah, he knows how to get in touch with me.
Funny.
Nobody knows how to get in touch with her, basically. And so I liked that.
She ghosted you all. Bye.
Yeah, she did. I thought you were saying that she ghost 83, 86.
No, she ghosts everything.
Yeah.
I have a question though about the Bruce thing.
Yeah.
Do we think that the when Tony brought back Tony reset everything as it was before the snap? Smart Hulk happened after the snap. So did the snap unmake Smart Hulk back into Bruce Banner?
I don't think so. I think he only brought back people who had died. I don't think other things about people who had changed. Just hypothetically, if someone had lost a limb, I don't think that would have come back, because the whole point of Endgame was to not undo the
last 5 years.
Yeah.
Because then we wouldn't get all this like post-blip anxiety.
Yeah.
Which was a poster on.
Great poster.
Yeah, there's a great poster. Yeah,
well, there's some too well now.
There was conversation in the chat about trying to figure out when this was. It's definitely post blip, and there's posters for blip counseling, support groups and such. So yeah, that's when this is. But let's talk about that scene. So the end scene when we've got everybody. Kate getting to see Captain Marvel, Bruce Banner, and how it all ties together. And Wong right there in the thick of it. Tell us what you think about all of it.
Well, what I'm curious about, I'm not, they haven't really done anything with Captain Marvel and where she's going to end up. And they, Bruce being Bruce was a little bit surprising, and I don't know how to treat that. I don't know how I feel about that. It's just, I have more questions now, but I do like that, especially in this movie, that Wong was the more dominant character and it wasn't Strange. Because it gives Strange a chance to go to Spider-Man, and it gives Wong a chance to kind of be in this like kind of otherworldly and take more control and take more power, as opposed to just being the sidekick character to Doctor Strange. He kind of has taken the lead to explain this universe to people who don't understand it. And I think that's why I really like this as a Marvel movie. And I think a lot of people liked it is because it didn't feel like a Marvel movie. They didn't need to know anything about it. They got an origin story. And it's like, here we go. We're bringing it into the universe.
Until you get to the mid-credit scene,
you don't need to know anything about the Avengers.
You can have never seen a single Marvel movie.
So it's nice little like gateway.
Yeah, Wong and the Abomination, sure. That's something, but you're going to completely enjoy the movie without it. Yeah. So
what I'm curious about is when in Wong's timeline this is because Spider-Man's going to come after this.
Yes.
So it's like it's like, given what I've seen of Wong in the trailer, it's like how do we get from this Wong to that Wong?
Well, and if it does indeed tie into Eternals, that'll probably be your answer. That's how we get to, so we'll have to see how it all fits in. But look, I thought it was great. And then I think from a production standpoint, just because, this movie was filmed during the pandemic, that makes the fight sequences that much more impressive, that they're able to have them look so good. But then also I really felt like the way that Carol and Bruce were used, it was basically like, we FedEx Brie Larson her costume and the camera, and we talked her through how to film her, do a self tape basically to put into the movie. Right. It had that feel to it, but I think it all worked. I think it was fine in that sense. They used that technology in Endgame where they were all represented there on the screen. What did you think, Eric, of that scene in general, but then showing us how this is actually going to fit into the MCU, wherein in like up until that moment in the movie, you weren't entirely sure how it was going to all fit together.
Well, it's smart. I mean, I'm trying to remember, guys, like the order was Shang-Chi always supposed to be before Eternals?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Or no. Okay,
wasn't Eternals going to come out last year?
That's right.
Yeah, but I thought Shang-Chi was also going to come out earlier.
But if Shang-Chi was shot mostly during pandemic,
Yeah, well, and Eternals was also shot during the pandemic because that's why she made Nomadland, because she could make that movie during the early part of the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. But for to your point though, what about the timeline? What is that?
Well, I'm just curious if then, because they've had to reshuffle, then they're like, okay, well, we got to put some thread between these, and Eternals too. It right now feels like it's so over there, in terms of no overlap, and so I think it is smart. Anything they could do to sort of throw kind of like a life raft over to Eternals to bring it in, because otherwise it really is just this Dune-ish, nomad land-ish kind of thing, which looks, by the way, very cool. I'm increasingly excited to see it, but it is one of those how are they going to make it feel part of MCU? So anything they could do to connect that, smart. With in my book, I also was thinking, is this related to Kang? Is this related to, I was about to say ATV? No, it's already been so long since Loki. I'm forgetting the name.
TVA, yeah.
TVA. I like ATV more. But
yeah, well, that's because you like to go four-wheeling out in the desert
all the time, right? Yeah. So no, I think they need to do something. But if I can, there was one thing I was going to throw out there real quick because I know we're wrapping soon. One thing about, by the way, the telling of the story that was pretty daring was their use of flashbacks.
Yeah,
and leaning so much in the past, and it actually reminded me so much of just a lot of cinema I've seen out of China and Asia over the years. That's idea of storytelling where it's not afraid to pause, go back into a chapter of the past, come back.
Right.
And I especially when I was watching a second time, I think I really appreciate the fact that they were able to pull off so much of the origin stuff happened before page one. And they did such a great job, I thought, of kind of weaving that in as it went along so that it never felt like it slowed down the narrative, which is a real challenge because sometimes, depending on your taste for these things, some movies you might watch from China, sometimes the pace is something where you're just like, okay, they're sitting and talking again. I thought it worked here, though. I'm kind of glad that they leaned into that part of not just having a story with Asian characters, but really kind of leaning into a trope, if you will, of Asian storytelling.
Right.
Sorry to make sure I got that.
Go for Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to. I know you guys are hype about that scene, and it can connect to everything. But I just feel like I'm glad y'all are happy about it because I thought it was so bland. I thought it was so boring, and I thought it was so easy for them to do. And to be honest, the only person I was excited about was seeing Wong again because Captain Marvel doesn't move any type of needle for me. Bruce Banner is going to be a side character in the next Hulk TV show. So I wasn't really excited for that. And then they kept it very broad. You know what I mean? So it could have connected to Eternals. It could have connected to stuff. So I wasn't excited for that mid-credit scene. Just getting that out there. But Kate, no, I knew you had to release. So yeah, what was the release schedule on that one?
So the original release schedule before the pandemic hit and changed everything was supposed to be Black Widow, Eternals, Falcon Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Loki, and Spider-Man Far From Home or No Way Home.
Right. Well, yeah, because the TV obviously all got bunched up together because they were actually able to deliver it to us was really a big reason. But
now thinking about it that way, it's now my whole did they have to refilm stuff to put it in this new order? And how did they change it? Because now it's all different. So now I'm curious of because they probably changed things to fit this new order, because it definitely feels especially in the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, is that started the Multiverse of Madness and not WandaVision leading into Doctor Strange. So it's how did they flip this?
And then Loki, what happened? I thought Loki was a part of the beginning of the multiverse. Multiverse of Madness. So that being after Multiverse of Madness and Loki being in the movie, how does that even work? So it's
Yeah,
just gonna be
no, I mean it's
interesting.
interesting. It would be great
this
to
is
know, like,
according to Collider. So this is
Yeah.
that was the depth of my
But-
research. So if anyone
but
is
that-
like, no, that's
it
bullshit, let me know.
would be interesting to know, like, if that was the plan, what would have been different, just out of curiosity. In terms of something that Eric was just talking about, Kemi Egan points out that in the Congai show earlier, it was brought up how the subtitles set the perfect tone for the whole film. It is a great point that there is so much of the early part of the film. There's so much that's in subtitles, and it's always very easy to come up with a reason why people are speaking English, but it would have made less sense than most times where you see it not make sense, you know? So I think that there are a lot of tropes like you're talking about, Eric, in terms of, you know, from Asian cinema, but also, you know, at the end of the day, it really is still a kung fu movie. It's just, you know, it is a hybrid of one in the later portion thereof. So, yeah, I think that, you know, we will have at least one more episode where we talk about this show, about this movie on this show, yet to be scheduled, but we will be doing at least one more before that. But before we wind everything down, I wanted to share, Eric has asked to share with the class some of his handiwork, as is often so handy. First, we were talking about Bib Fortuna earlier, and he has outrageous Fortuna, fat Bib Fortuna, for lack of a better word. And I want you to set up this next one before I show it, Eric. Explain the concept before we share the visual with people.
Yeah. Before people protest and burn all their Bladcast T-shirts and bumper stickers and back scratchers. You know, okay, so I was watching this movie and I kept thinking about, like, oh my gosh, like 1980s, the movies I grew up watching and how Asians were portrayed. And, you know, and Kate, it's funny, you brought up Kung Fu movies. When I was a kid, Kung Fu Theater was on every Saturday afternoon.
Yes!
And that was like a go-to. And it was, and I'm talking, by the way, back in the day before I had cable, when I actually did have a TV with bunny ears, because yes, I am that old. I'm a little older than old man Christian up there.
Just a little, though.
And I might be Jeff Williams. It's possible. I mean, you know,
We don't know.
doing much of anything back then, but who knows? But the long and short of it is, you know, I was thinking, I mean, how horrendously stereotyped Asian characters were for most of my youth.
Oh my God.
And really, like, even up until recent years. So with that in mind, with all due peace and love,
Peace and love. Peace and love.
We'll do a Ringo Starr episode later. But yes, the idea of what if they made Shang-Chi in different decades.
So what if he was made in
1961?
Yes,
or 20? My favorite one is what if it was made in 2015. And then,
I
of
think we
course,
should just say again that, like, we're making fun of how Hollywood treated.
Yes.
No,
these
exactly.
horrible characters.
And
if you've seen Breakfast at
bad.
Tiffany's, it is one of the most beautiful films. And then in there, in the middle of all this beauty, is Mickey fucking Rooney as an Asian character.
Wasn't he nominated?
What's that?
Was he nominated for that?
I think so.
Oh God!
All right, Kate, I'm going to put you on the research.
We're going to burn
putting on
to the ground tonight if that's true.
So
thank God this was made when it was. Is maybe how I'm putting it.
No, I know, and you know, that goes back to what I was saying, was that, you know, my wife, just the idea that if she could have had this when she was a kid, that there would have been the Asian superhero, you know, and instead you can look towards the future. You know, our kids will have a world where there is an Asian superhero. I don't think they're quite ready to see this yet at 6 and 3. But when they do get to see superhero movies, there'll already be the fact that, oh yeah, and then, you know, this guy, he's Chinese just like you are. And
Christian, I offer my services to re-edit Breakfast at Tiffany's so your children can watch it.
Okay,
I'll do a Rooney cut. Mickey Rooney out of it.
Thank God he wasn't. He wasn't.
You should have to. He was not nominated. And
Somebody else was for doing some horrible thing, but
yeah.
Well, even like Short Circuit in the 80s, you had what's his name? Fisher Stevens played an Indian character. I mean, it's not that long ago.
Didn't John Wayne also do something?
Oh, of course.
But I mean, look, we can easily do a whole show on these, but my favorite will always be the Orson Welles classic, A Touch of Evil, where, of course, a Mexican is portrayed by Charlton Heston. But
you mean Carlos Heston. Carlos Heston.
Senor Heston. No, and look, so obviously you're making light of Hollywood with the graphic for our video listeners.
Not one I'm sharing
video audience
with that image, by the way.
No, but it's interesting because the character of Long Duck Dong in 16 Candles is something that it's not just problematic. It's more indicative of how people handle uncomfortable stereotypes. I mean, my wife and her family watched that movie, and it's not like they didn't laugh at those scenes, and it's only later that you start to realize, and that was one of the very rare occasions that there was an Asian character in a movie, and they thought it was funny. And look, I think people need to be able to laugh at themselves, but and look, that movie's from a different time where you felt like you could do that, but does that mean it was right? I don't know, but a lot of people sure saw that movie and it made a lot of money, and it's not like they yanked it off the shelves, so but it is a perfect reminder of how far we've come from things like that, but
I also
go ahead.
I think it's indicative also of when we started getting more in America, especially. It used to be open. Like if you could just walk off the gangway, you could come here.
Yeah.
Until the Chinese immigrants started coming here, and then that's when the whole push for immigration law really started. And then because Americans didn't want them to take the steel jobs and the railroad jobs, they were relegated to more quote unquote feminine work, laundry and restaurants.
Yeah.
And so for a very long time, Asian men in particular, and I've been watching this, especially with I'm really into food and I'm really into kung fu, and it's hard to watch the history of Asian American men in television be relegated to the non-sexy, non-attractive comedic relief to the white male character. So to see, even with all of the Eternals that are Asian, that are kind of becoming, even though they're becoming more Western masculine, as opposed to just masculine in their own right. And to Simu Liu, who looked amazing. First of all, it was nice, but it was great. But you have these men who are Asian that are we're redefining, and we are sexy, and we are masculine, and we're not that stereotype. And there are not only just, we're not transforming into a Western stereotype, we're becoming a new thing. And we are attractive, and we are capable, and we're not just kung fu masters or, the butt of jokes. We're here, and we're able to do other things. So, props to the way that basically Simu Liu was like, hey, great job, Marvel. When is Shang-Chi happening? And they called him. It's just that turn takes place by perseverance and persistence.
Yeah, I think that it is great that that's really how it started. Was he literally tweeted at them, and and there he, and here he is now. He's a superhero, and I think it's very easy to be critical from, there's a lot of times where you can be like, well, that movie would never get made anymore. And in some cases, it's not necessarily a bad thing. In other cases, it's well, it's good that you still have it from a time period. It's the idea. There is a lot of that people feel like, oh, the world is too sensitive. But the upside of that is that I like to think that we're better for different groups who feel now that they're represented. I mean, there's, we got Black Panther. We have this. We have Shang-Chi, and Eternals is a great example because there's a trans character in that, right? I think fairly
there?
sure one of them. Yeah, I'm almost positive. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know
No, I
anything
think so.
about.
I think, yeah, I know. I think one of them is, and then yeah, you see the cast, and it's very diverse, and it is that simple, that the importance of representation. I don't know, like, Jeff, if when you were a kid, who your favorite like heroes in movies might have been, but it's the same thing as my wife thinking about like how great it would be if if Shang-Chi had been around, if Black Panther had been among Superman and Batman and everybody else. I would imagine that would have it would have been important.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. For me, it was always like cartoons. I was say I would go back to like anime or just animated cartoons or superheroes. It was never just like someone that looked like me. It was never the Black Panthers, the Black Lightnings, the Miles Moraleses of the world. Now there's so many different people that we can count or that we can name now, but like back then there wasn't. I always thought of different actors as my superheroes until they played that. So like Will Smith was my superhero, or that's the first name that comes to mind. But like hearing
that's a perfect example too, because he's the biggest movie star of that era, and that's a testament to how times were changing even then. I mean, it's. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's a great point that I hadn't thought of. There, you would see that representation, and DC has all those animated movies that they've done over the years, and you're going to get to see some of those characters in it. Whereas, for me, I'm like, oh yeah, Peter Parker and Scott Summers, and so many of the heroes that I read in comics. I'm like, well, yeah, they all look like me because I'm so handsome. But
honestly, like my favorite superhero, and I was so angry that I didn't look was Storm. That was my girl.
Oh, wow.
Like, I was like, I don't want to be Rogue. Rogue is lame. Like, I want to be Storm.
When she lost her powers,
like,
I remember as a kid reading that issue, and I was like,
oh
devastated.
yeah. But like I remember watching and reading Storm, and then watching Halle Berry in the movies, and it's just like, but that was like the only one I remember from when I was a kid. And like, I can't even imagine, like, I don't know, like we finally got our Black Widow movie, and we got like, we say like, oh, we're finally getting, but like, the clock is like, the finalies for everybody else are like, can we go now? Like,
it's also about money, right? This movie makes money that opens. I mean, imagine all those doors open depending on the box office receipts here. And that's where I was writing in the chat to you guys, like TV oftentimes gets there first, right? Sitcoms of the 70s were more daring than any of the movies or dramas back in the day. And so, yeah, this one having a huge box opening weekend, that's great.
Yeah, and I think that was
getting other work.
Honestly, that's the fear I think a lot of people had, was they're going to open it exclusively in theaters during a pandemic, so that they're going to be able to say, well, we can't make any more movies with Asian superheroes, with Asian leads. I mean, look, the Snake Eyes movie came out and was in and out of theaters very quickly. It's on Paramount Plus now, and that was not the release plan that they had for it. And that had an Asian lead, but it's, so you could very well have been able to make that case. So the fact that it did make money, I think that's really what it all comes down to, is like, well, look at how successful this was in spite of so many things working against it. The fact that, look, the biggest city in this country, you can't go to a movie theater unless you can prove that you're vaccinated. And this movie still made a ton of money. I believe New York is the only place that I know for sure that that's the case. But they're talking about doing it in places, and we can always talk about.
And they
that
have that whole passport system set up, so it can be done with much more ease.
For our visual listeners, I brought up my favorite image of Aurora Monroe Storm, which is Kate. I think that this is the look that you should have wanted to go for, especially the mohawk. If you ever think you might be able to pull it off, please be sure to let us know.
I mean, Storm she's queen. she's just queen. I can't touch it. I know I'll never be able to touch it. It's
Yeah.
you know,
No,
it's,
because I mean,
but
you
she
took
was the best. She was like calm. She was fiery. She was on her game, and like, and it was, you know, it was really. I don't know. There's only so much I can say.
No.
But she was just the coolest.
And to Eric's point, the transformation of that character after she lost her powers in Uncanny X-Men 185, when Rogue was supposed to be the one who got shot, and you know, this life death story, which is like, I read as a kid, I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. There's a lot of emotions, but it's amazing. And, you know, she also becomes the leader of the Morlocks who live in the subway tunnels. And she has no powers, and she beats Cyclops to be the leader of the X-Men in Uncanny X-Men 201. You know, it's like, I don't need powers to beat you, Cyclops. You're so lame. I kid because I love Cyclops, even though he's got a bad rap these days. But yeah, and I think that you want to talk about a character that I think that Kevin Feige and our friends at Marvel Studios are very excited for being able to tell their take of Storm and, of course, all the X-Men. Yeah, you know what? Ivan Soto asked the question, will America Chavez be the first Hispanic in the MCU movie side? There's already a few in the TV side, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Runaways. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had Ghost Rider, which was great. Yeah. But I think you're probably right. I mean, we're also going to get Kamal Khan, you know, our first Middle Eastern superhero. So I think that it's great that these movies make so much money that they're able to, you know, convince people like, no, you have to let us tell these stories, you know. And it all goes back to, you know, the first Iron Man and Thor and, you know, all the early movies being success. That's how we get here. And you can't rush it. You can't do your superhero team up movie as your third movie. I'm not going to say who did that, but anyway,
I did it.
Yeah, I know, Kate. I know, that's why you've been so busy.
Damn it.
So Kate,
building universes. Well, Kate, it's been so delightful having you back with us, but we know that you're much too busy to hang out with us, and so we won't see you on Wednesdays at at our new time, which we started last week at 11 a.m. Pacific is when we'll be back, 2 p.m. Eastern, to talk about What If Episode 5. And they're putting it out there what this episode is, Eric. So you might need to put your blinders on, because I know you don't like to know what the story is going to be before you see it. I'm not going to say it.
Don't say it.
It's out there what it is. Like, they haven't done that for earlier episodes, but they tweeted it out what this one's going to be. So we'll see how excited I am about it. But Kate, are you getting to check out What If?
I like it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I hated the third episode, but everybody who watches this show knows that already, so we don't need to go into it. Well, Kate, if people want to be able to keep in touch with you, since you don't want to keep in touch with us, how do they do that?
Rude.
A little rude.
God. Yeah, sorry guys. I have work on Wednesdays now, so I'm so sorry. But I'll try to come back as often as I can. Until then, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Cornellable, which is, where is it? It's right somewhere there. It's there.
Right there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And then on YouTube, Kaitlin Cornell Crusoe, and it's on everywhere. So somebody asked me what my YouTube was earlier.
I know. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I meant to put that up. And then we had a lively chat for it being almost 1:30 in the morning on the East Coast. I think it's a delightful chat that we're having. So thank you to everybody who participated.
I've never met you, and I already like you. So hooray.
Yeah. So Jeff, let everybody know where you can find, we can find you. Sorry.
For all the lovely people in the comments that want to find me, you don't even have to throw in any numbers in my username. You can just do @Jeff Jr. on all your social media platforms, and I'll see you there.
And much love to the chat from Jeff Will Jr. He's so glad that I like how passionate people get about things, but remember, we're all people too. But and finally, Eric, where can people find you and your movie that Michael Shirley loved?
Well, if you want to find the person that Jacob Downey referred to as the hottie on the panel, over at Count Eric Conner over in the Twitterverse and the Instagramverse. I hang around on Facebook at night. Eric Adam Conner, though my given name is Yitzhak in honor of Shang-Chi embracing his true identity. Yitzhak Abraham, if you nasty, as I said before. Yes, and other voices out there on Amazon. Michael Shirley watched it, and we know he hates everything. And he apparently liked it. So I guess I don't know if that's
You broke him.
I don't know. Or
Like, surely.
You might have broken him.
Delete it from Amazon and destroy Amazon in the process. But if you can watch it, that'd be great. And wishing those who celebrated a happy and healthy New Year. And lastly, also in memorial of Michael K. Williams, fabulous actor we just lost way too soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. And of course, Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you to everyone in our chat. And we will be back on Wednesday, as I said, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here for more Marvel movie talk. Until then, as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.